Good morning and welcome to this ICCB webinar over DAISI 2.0 launch. My name is Kirsten Sherry with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. Today's topic is going over the DAISI 2.0 launch. As a reminder, all participants on the call are in listen-only mode. If you have questions as the webinar proceeds, please post your question in the question, comment, or chat box. All of those boxes are synonymous, so depending on whether you're on a tablet, a phone, or a computer, it might be labeled different things, either question, comment, or chat. But it's just a little text box that you can type your questions in, and then we will address those throughout the webinar as well as at the end of the webinar. Another quick reminder that this webinar will be recorded, and today's presentation recording and all materials, the slide deck, and a PDF presented during today's meeting will be available on the ICCB website within 48 hours. Another quick reminder that if you do start experiencing a faulty internet connection, or what you would prefer to call in using your phone, you can do that using the directions that was sent in your initial registration email, and it should provide you with a phone number so you can call in. And you can do this at any time. So if you are currently on line registration listening to us, if you start experiencing a faulty connection, you can exit out and call in and it will let you right back in. I did want to note that there are some PDFs and the PowerPoint slides in the handout section. So on your dashboard, there should be a drop-down labeled handouts, and you can access those documents there if you would like to follow along with us. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters for today, Jay Brooks and Joe Reiner. Jay?
Thank you, Kirsten. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. As Kirsten said, my name is Jay Brooks, and I'm the Senior Director for Research and Policy Studies at the Community College Board. And welcome to DAISI 2.0. We wanted to bring everyone together to introduce our new system as we begin to roll that out to program use. Kirsten, can you advance the slide? So we have several items in today's agenda. We have a lot to pack into 1 hour, but there's several things that we wanted to touch on. We will spend the bulk of today doing a live demonstration, but there are some other things that we wanted to share with you. We'll be giving you a little bit of an overview of DAISI 2.0, sort of outlining the reasons for the move to this new system, the system requirements, what we need you to do as you begin using 2.0. If you encounter any issues, we'll highlight a little bit of the differences between how DAISI 2.0 looks different than the original system, and we'll highlight a few YouTube resources that have been developed to help you in this transition over to the 2.0 system. Go ahead and advance the slide. So a little bit of the overview here. The DAISI 2.0 system has actually been in development for some time, and it has been designed to look almost screen for screen exactly like the original system. When you access this system for the first time and you begin to use it, you're going to see that it has a very similar feel and layout to what you're used to doing in the original DAISI system. That is by design, and what we wanted to do was create a system that didn't require a whole additional set of training, but one rather that folks who have experience in using the original system could just easily step into. It would be familiar, and they could continue to enter their data in the way that they already have or that they have been doing. I also want to stress that the 2.0 system is not a move away from the Pentaho reporting. All of the reports that you've generated historically have come out of the Pentaho system. Those reports will still come out of the same place. The 2.0 system is really more designed for the user interface, the data entry portion of DAISI. Historically, as you guys are aware, the original DAISI system has been around for some time, and this new system is built on a different language and is more modern, and it will allow us, our hope is it will allow us to be able to do some things more quickly than what we've been able to do traditionally. To help with this rollout to help make sure that it's as seamless as possible. We are using a phased roll-in. We've had some programs have already begun to use the 2.0 system to enter their data, and we are doing a phased roll-in so that programs will be coming in, new programs will be coming into the 2.0 system each week. In the handout section, you have an adult education provider list, DAISI 2.0 rollout document. That will outline for you the groups, the group that your program is in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But we want to be somewhat strategic and structured in the way that we roll this out so that it's easy to manage and we can address any issues as they should arise. Go ahead and advance the slide. So in looking at the 2.0 rollout, what we want to do is we are going to do this in 3 groups over the next 3 weeks. As you can see on your screen, each program has been designated into one of these 3 groups. If you weren't a part of the initial pilot or you haven't already been using 2.0, that document will outline for you which group you're in. If for some reason you look at the document and you don't see your program there, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. We'll make sure we remedy that issue. But I believe everyone should be on the list. I also want to point out to you that everything that is in the original DAISI system is being brought over and this has been going on for some time, kind of behind the scenes, has been brought over into DAISI 2.0. So you kind of think of this as a practical matter, and your program staff are entering information on Wednesday. That night, the data that was entered in the original system has been migrated over into 2.0 already. So really what we're doing now is we're just kind of sunsetting or letting the original system be removed, and you'd enter data directly into the 2.0 system versus having sort of this enter one system, it migrates to another, and then you get your reporting. So the system has been behind the scenes for a while. And as you look at the groups that are identified here on the screen, Group 1 will begin using the 2.0 system on this coming Monday, on June 15th. The data that will be available in 2.0 will be reflective of everything that was entered in the original DAISI system through Friday, June 12th at 4. So if you're a Group 1 program, everything that you enter this week up until 4 o'clock on Friday, when you come back in on Monday, it will all be in the 2.0 system. And you will just resume and continue to enter data just as you did originally in the original data system. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. So this new site that you see here should be familiar to those of you who've been using and generating reports out of the Pentaho system. Basically what we're doing is you'll be accessing the 2.0 system directly, and you can access it through this site. Your same login credentials are going to get you into the system just like they have, just like it did in the original system. The new DAISI system is built upon Google Angular 9 as a language, and there's a resource link there that you can access if you want, if you have an interest in and want to know more about that. You can see also a few things about JavaScript has to be enabled. That's nothing new. That was also the case in the original system. And also you have to have a PDF reader such as Adobe Reader and Microsoft Excel. Again, if you've been using DAISI, these are kind of the standard tools that you would have used historically. Also, I just want to point out that we've identified the browsers that have been most tested using the 2.0 system. And so these 4 browsers virtually account for the lion's share, like 97% of all internet users, I believe, is kind of where all of these 4 combined come in at. But if you happen to be using a browser that isn't on the screen, that doesn't mean that 2.0 won't work in that browser. It just means, like, an example might be Safari, for example. If you're using Safari as a browser, it will still work. It's just it has not been as thoroughly vetted and tested as the browsers that you see. So it may be that if you're using a different browser, you might encounter some issues that we just haven't detected. So just be aware of that. But if you're using Chrome or Firefox, which tend to be the 2 folks most often use, those have been pretty thoroughly tested in the 2.0 system. So let's go ahead and advance the slide. So during this transition over the next 3 weeks, our partners at Kate will be prioritizing issues around system functionality. So our aim, our goal here is to try to make this transition as smooth as possible. But anytime you move from one system to another, regardless of the amount of testing or the amount of work that's been done, there's always going to be sort of hiccups and bumps along the road. We want to try to hopefully keep that to a minimum. But in order to do that, what we really need from you guys is, as you're entering information, if you encounter a problem, don't hesitate to, as outlined in this second bullet here, immediately contact the DAISI support desk at daisisupport@kate.org. We really want to focus on things that would prevent you from entering data into the system, or if something doesn't seem to be working properly. And we have all hands on deck to try to address those issues. We anticipate that some of those will occur, but we think that we have been able to get that to sort of a minimum number of issues. But again, this is a move to a different system. And some of you may be wondering, okay, with everything that's going on, why now? Ideally, it would be nice if we had a longer time horizon in which to make this transition. But with everything that's occurred, especially in light of the changes that's necessary to assist with the COVID crisis and other things, it really makes so much more sense to sort of expedite this transition so that we can focus on development in one system versus trying to develop something both in the original system and DAISI 2.0. So that's part of the reason for this fairly aggressive timeline for transitioning programs into 2.0. Go ahead and advance the slide. So as you begin working in DAISI 2.0, what we're going to ask you to do is, if you encounter that problem, something's missing, something's not functioning the way that it should be functioning, we would like for you to either just copy the web address that you're on from your address bar, or just simply take a screenshot of what you're seeing and embed that and attach that in the email to the help desk. And along with that, sort of briefly, we don't want it to be a burden to do this, but to sort of briefly explain what you're trying to update or what you're trying to do, that and approximately when this occurred. That will help us to narrow down our examination so that we can really try to target in on what's happening. So if you kind of follow those, sort of pick one of the two things from the first couple of items there, and then just sort of indicate what's going on, and then that will help us to shorten that response time to identify what's happened, and hopefully be able to remedy that fairly quickly. One thing I do want to point out, I mentioned that the 2.0 system is really a system focused on data entry and not on reporting. And not all reports are available that were available in the original DAISI system. We are working to try to resolve that as quickly as possible. But if there's a report that you were using that you would find, that you really just can't do without, please reach out to us and let us know. And perhaps in the short term, we can help you develop a sort of a temporary solution as we kind of make our way through this transition. I do want to stress, though, that in terms of what's available in the Pentaho Reporting Center, those reports are still there. None of those are gone. It's going to look just like it always has. It's just the screens where data entry occurs. Some of the things that you would have seen there are going to look a little bit different. So we know this is a big move, and a transition like this at this time is never easy. It's never easy in the best of times, in the best of situations. But with clear communication, we're going to try to manage this and make it as painless as possible for everyone as we make this transition. Go ahead and advance the slide. As indicated before, you see the address for DAISI 2.0 listed here. Probably one of the biggest differences, there's a couple of other areas where there are some differences, and it's not a screen-for-screen comparison between the original DAISI system and DAISI 2.0. probably one of the biggest differences will be the landing page or the home page of what was the original DAISI system. And so when you log in, and Joe will, my colleague from Kate will kind of walk you guys through this in the live demonstration. But when you log in and you access various screens, you're going to see that initial landing page is going to look a little bit different. Once you actually start getting to the student screen, the classes screen, the courses screen, administration, all those tabs, all those navigation points are going to look very, very similar. But that landing page and then a few other screens within the system have been updated for several reasons. But the landing page is where you're going to see the most significant change from the original system. So don't let that throw you. Once you get past that, you're going to be looking at stuff that looks much more familiar. Go ahead and advance the slide. Within the PDF for the DAISI 2.0 launch overview, you'll find this slide that has links directly to some YouTube videos that have been created to help with entering attendance and accessing the class view and things of that nature. But all of these are directly accessible through the link. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And so finally, before we move over to the live demonstration, I want to pause for a second and address any questions that have either come in chat, or someone would like to raise their hand if they have a question and need to be unmuted. We can do that as well. I do see a question about, will custom reports be available in the new DAISI? That is one of the issues that we're hoping that by being able to focus on development in just one system versus doing it in multiple systems, that we will be able to address and get a more robust custom reporting tool than what you have available to you now. We know there are limitations in what you can pull through custom reports. The short answer is not immediately, but that is one of our goals moving forward, is to enhance and beef up that custom reporting functionality. And do we have any other questions at this point? Okay. Not seeing any other hands or anything like that. Kirsten, I think we'll go ahead and turn things over to Joe for the live demonstration.
Okay, sounds good. I will go ahead.
Just one quick thing, just as Joe will also just let you know, Joe will also stop periodically to address any questions. We'll sort of do that in kind of groups after he works his way through things. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to put those in the questions or chat box. Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Reiner. I work for the, CATE, the Center for Application of Information Technologies at Western Illinois University. And we're responsible for developing the actual software. So today we're going to give you a little demo of the new DAISI 2.0. The first thing I want you to notice is up at the top here. This is Demo J. This is not our production site. We're not going to show you some programs' actual real data. We're going to show you fake data today. So when you use it, you'll go to v21.iccbdaisy.org. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And I'm going to just log in. For those of you who have multiple roles, it will stop and ask you who you want to be. Some people will be program administrators and maybe also instructors. It could be a variety of different things. But if you only have one role, it skips right past this page. I'm going to choose root administrator. And then most of you will come to this landing page, and everybody will have a change account password, and reports will be here. And then the V2 DAISI is here. The rest of the stuff you generally won't see, but depending on what your role, you'll see different things. But down here, we're going to focus on the DAISI V2 DAISI link here, and this is how you're going to access the new DAISI 2.0. I guess the whole site is DAISI 2.0, but this is the new user interface that hopefully you'll be familiar with. The landing page is a little bit different than before. It's going to default to the current fiscal year, and then your program will show up. Most of you will only have one program. and you'll just click on it and you're in the new DAISI interface. And it drops you into student search immediately. But you can come up here to students, classes, courses, instructors. This is the same exact links that you had in DAISI 1.0. They look a little bit different. Up at the top, it'll tell you which program you're using and which fiscal year you're currently using. So you have a good idea of what you're at. If you look at a previous fiscal year, there'll be a frozen icon along with the word frozen. And if you look at a previous fiscal year, it'll say read only and will not allow you to change DAISI. So anything that you'll be able to see in here will be view only. You won't be able to add new students, or you won't be able to change anything if it were frozen in like previous fiscal year. So this is similar to the way the old DAISI works, but you do get a good indicator up here in this area. And if it's blank, it means it's available to be used to add students and to do data entry on it. I'm going to start off with student search, and I'm just going to do list current. Well, before I do list current, I'll show you the searching options that we have. We have the standard basic search. It should be identical to the old one in position of everything, as well as functionality. And under the advanced search, we have bio demo. So you can search based on that. And again, you just check it, choose your marital status in this case. So if you want all single people, you can do that. And then we can have classes enrollment. It's pretty much the exact same stuff, except for we have it kind of unfolding like this rather than the old one was. I think you hit the advanced button and you were showed everything at once. So hoping that's slightly easier. Okay, but I'm not going to actually do a search. We're just going to do list current fiscal year. One thing I wanted to point out about this was that we tested a program a few weeks ago on the old DAISI system. On the old DAISI system, we did a list student current fiscal year, and it took 7 seconds. And then we turned around and redid that in DAISI 2.0, and it took less than a second. So I'm hoping you're going to encounter a large speed improvement. So this search screen right here lists everybody who's in the program. You can change the number of people you see at once, up to 200 people in the entire list if you wish. And you can go to the next button. I'll go back to 10. You have nice next buttons down here, and it should be pretty fast to move around, but you can also decide how many you want to see at once. I'm going to select myself here, Joe Reiner Stu. So this is pretty much the same screen you saw in the student screens before. And one thing you'll notice in big red here is this student has too many units of instruction, has invalid attendance data, has a test gain error, and is missing a career cluster. So this student's in error state, and this should draw your eye right to it that I need to fix this student. And then this is a warning down here, which is probably related to the gain error. Down here, you'll see all the bio demo stuff. This should be very similar to what it was before. I think it's exactly the way it was before, so I'll show you that. We have the status page here. It's the same as before. You can just change any information you choose. Works very, very similar to the old system. Test info has changed. So this isn't a great example, but it's an example. This student has taken a best literacy class, and in this section right here, it shows you what test they took, and in this section it shows the test gains. So what would happen is if you had multiple tests in best literacy, they'd be listed here, and then here it would show you the gain information that the system chose and derived based on what tests you've entered. One new thing is we have a periods of participation number. This starts in FY20. You can have up to 3 periods of participation. This came from Octay a couple years ago, actually. And for each period, you have students with attendance. If they were to leave the program for up to 90 days, or over 90 days, I should say, they will then, when they come back, if they come back, they would get a second period of participation. And you will get 1 row of test gain here per period of participation. So, so this could be up to 3 rows of that. And then down here we have a TABE M test, math test, and the same type of thing going on. And then finally at the very bottom, we're going to have your NRS test pairs for the year. And you could have 1 pair per period of participation. And if I got a gain, NRS level gain in period 1, and I had an NRS level gain in period 2, you would get 2 gains for that student for NRS reporting purposes. So that's kind of a little bit of a change in the view. If you look at previous fiscal years where we're doing attendance hour filter on and off, which I think everybody is familiar with, instead of saying period of participation right here, it will say AH on and off, and you'll have 2 rows, 1 for off and 1 for on. So it still looks basically the same, but when you do that stuff, it works a little different. With DAISI 2.0, you can no longer enter self-reported high school equivalencies. You can only report the Constitution test. Everything else will be done with data match. We do a data match once a month, I believe, and the date isn't real firm on which day it is, I don't think. And then down here, we would list all of your data matching information. And if one thing I haven't talked about in the other webinars, but if you do find somebody whose their data match is wrong, they didn't take a high school equivalency, you can let us know, and we can get that removed. That's been around for a little while. So that's testing. I'm going to go into class information. This is more standard stuff. I think it's identical to the old system, so I'm just going to kind of breeze through it. And then if anybody has questions, I'll come back to them. Goals and achievements is the same. Student notes is the same. You can type in a note. We still have custom fields. And then we have the EL Civics, and this is not funded by that. So that's the end of students. If you want, I can stop and answer questions about student tests or anything else.
Yes,
so,
Joe, this
yeah.
this is Jay. We do have a few questions that come in. Let me we can maybe go through those. And there's a couple where maybe you can actually sort of demonstrate or show to help address the questions come in. The first one I'd like to address is in regards to, are there plans to add functionality to the student import feature to include enrolling students into classes? It currently only allows student bio demo information. Yes, that is 100% correct. And I think one of the things I'm most hopeful about with this 2.0 system is I was originally involved with the original bio demo upload, and we knew at the time it was a very limited upload. This new system will basically allow for importing virtually every field that is in DAISI to be imported from another system. We are currently working on the documentation for what a program would need to do in order to make that happen. But this will be a much, much more robust import function and feature than just the narrow bio demo screens that you've seen historically. So I think that part is exciting. And we don't have an exact date on the release for that, but Joe and his team have been working on putting that together. The next 2 questions, Joe, I think if you can go back to the students list search page, they center around, would we be able to download lists longer than 200? And you want to show them what we have there?
Yeah, what you can actually do is hit the Excel button right here. I did a list current fiscal year. There's an Excel button on the results of all of our searches, and you can just press the Excel button. It'll download the entire list. So that's, if you want to look at everybody, it wouldn't just do the 10 or whatever that it's limited to. It would download them all.
Yeah, and I think, Joe, if I recall correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong here, don't let me misspeak on this, but I think in one situation where we looked at a download, we were able to download over 1,000 records through that link, and it was just a few seconds, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, it is very fast. It actually, we actually have downloaded all the data into your browser. It's not even in this, well, it is in the server, but it's in your browser at this point. So it's as fast as your computer can produce the Excel file. So if you have a really fast computer, it's going to be really fast. And if you have an old, slow one, please ask for a new one.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next question here is in regards to required data areas. Are they were in red in 1.0, and is that the same in this system? That was helpful. And the short answer to that is yes. If a field is required, when you add a new record, you're going to see, as Joe is highlighting here in his screen share right now, anything that's required shows up as in red again. So that has that sort of logic and display has been brought over from the original system. Is the period of participation for each fiscal year or all time? And there, as Joe pointed out, that period of participation is 90 days, no service, and come back. That would initiate a second period of participation that is bound to the fiscal year. So you could have, if someone served multiple fiscal years moving forward, they may have multiple periods of participation in multiple years. Mm-hmm. The next question is, will the test page add CASAS as of July 1st? That is actually one of our current priority focuses that we are doing, is to add in the CASAS so that it will be allowed in FY21. It is not currently in the system, but most programs are in the process right now of wrapping up FY20 data, but we are focused on getting that in for FY21. And where do you enter high school diplomas? Joe, do you want to show them? I think that is on the students, I believe it was on the goals and achievements tab, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, let me get my student back up here.
Right there it is.
My high school diploma today. So there you go.
Yep. And I think that mirrors, if I recall, I think that mirrors what was available on the original system. So, okay. Yep. I think, Joe, if you want to continue, I think we've addressed all the questions at this point. And guys, we will stop again to answer any other questions. So, Joe, if you want to continue.
Yep. So the second thing I want to talk about today is classes. We're going to kind of breeze over the courses and structures and funding. So if anybody wants to see that later, we can, but classes is where we made a few notable changes. So this is the class search screen. The add new is there too. We have the red asterisks for required fields. I didn't show off adding a student, and I should have, but you did get to see it there with that question, and thank you for that question. So we have a search screen here that allows you to search and find classes. Again, I'm just going to use list current fiscal year, and I'm going to choose this test class, and it should load right up. You do have a duplicate class button that matches the DAISI 1.0. Start, end date, default funding sources. Is the class iPathways or not? I'm sure a lot of people are doing distance learning now. Another thing is you can choose your enrollment type, and for distance learning, we've been using an individualized enrollment. So you can pretty much report all of your distance learning that your students are doing at this time. You have class schedules when they actually meet and where they're going to meet, and the building is in here as well. I don't remember where, there's the building, Horban Hall, which is where I work. So you have pretty much all the functionality you had before, and it works similar. You just click inside of these boxes if you want to change the times and the dates, and it'll help you do that. And you can even click in here. Sometimes it's not exactly obvious in DAISI 2.0 whether you can edit something or not, because it looks like it's just a field. You want to watch for the cursor to change shapes, and that lets you know that you can change it. And then you can click on it, and then it does that. So the modern internet is, in my opinion, is kind of making it slightly harder, whereas in the old days there was a button or something. So that's how that works. You have a roster, you can enroll, change your funding sources. These are all similar to before. And our newest feature is we've redone the attendance screen completely. And it's just a little different. We're hoping that it's going to be easier for people to use. The first thing I want to point out is this row here, the top row, is dealing with how you want to view your class. So for this drop down, we have all semester and we have monthly view. So depends how you want to view your class. You can do meeting days or calendar days. And when you're done, you just press refresh. I'll do calendar days. And if you like it spaced out or for whatever reason you like it this way, you can do this. I'm switching back to meeting days because it's my personal preference. And then if you did choose a month over here, you could choose which months were appropriate for you. So you can choose a month. And then you can choose active or all students. So if there were students who dropped the class, the default is only to show active students, so they would drop off. If that student were to come back and you needed to re-enroll them or start their attendance again, you could switch over to all and then refresh. In this example, I don't have anybody who is inactive right now, but you could do that. And then over here is our help button to remind you what all the possible codes are. So it's very similar to the way that it was before, the same codes. So we're hoping that data entry here will be easy for your instructors or for whoever's entering the data. And then down here we have use the function clear to clear out. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So in this row here, now we're going to start affecting attendance. So I'm going to scroll over. And one thing you'll notice when I scroll here, the names stay put. They don't scroll off to the left like the old DAISI did. And this is probably one of my favorite features of the new system. So you can scroll around very nice and easy. And we have two buttons over here. We have a today button. And you hit today, and it automatically selects today, June 10th. And I could just put in absent codes in here for each person. It doesn't like me to put attendance in that hasn't been done before. So let's do something different. So what I want to do is refresh up here to a month view, and we're going to fill in between, it looks like I stopped doing attendance on May 1st. So I'm going to choose May 1st all the way to June 9th. And everybody was present, okay? And then I can select all the students and I can generate, and it'll fill in the P codes for everybody except for this person who's having a problem. So they're already having an attendance issue. And I can submit, and it should give me a little green box saying it was submitted. And so now these 4 people were fixed, okay? Poor Vasuda here, she had an error prior. I think she's got a gap in attendance back here. I can just stick an A code in there. She was absent that day, and hit submit, and it should submit. There we go. And now she's happy. So anyway, I can hit the today button again, and I'm going to leave Vasuda out because we didn't fill in her records, but everybody else was absent today. And then I can just submit. So that's real easy if your instructors like to just, I want to do attendance for this day alone, they can do that. The next button over is the current week button. Wait for it to save. And then here's the current week button. So then they have an entire week here. And you'll notice the start date and the end dates are already filled in, and everybody's attendance is happy. I'm going to go ahead and give Vasuda an A for yesterday. And what I can do is I can just say, I want everybody to be, I'm going to select my students too. For this date range from 6/8, because it already pre-selected it for me, I can generate and put P codes in for every day. And it put in all the P codes. It was mad because I didn't save Vasuda's code. So make sure when you make a change and then fill it in, you do submit. But there I submitted the entire week's worth of attendance in one go. And then it turns out I only do my attendance once a week, and I went back and this student was absent on that date, and then I can submit. And the final feature I want to show you with the new attendance is our full screen button. So it's this big green button in the lower right-hand corner. So if you happen to have a larger monitor and you want to take advantage of it, because we're losing a lot of space in the left and right bars here. So if we hit this button, it's going to use all possible space on your monitor. It's the same functionality and everything, but you get to see more stuff at once. We're also going to stretch vertically if you have more students. So that's something that we added to it to hopefully make it a little bit more functional than the old attendance screen. So that's the end of attendance regular. This class happens to be a hybrid class. And here you just go in and type in your hours of attendance for individualized. So the student would report to you how many hours they worked on it, or maybe your program tells you how many hours you put in. It's up to how you guys want to work with it. The function codes don't work quite as cool. You can clear. I didn't show you how to do a function clear. I'll go back to attendance here and we'll scroll over. And so say you messed up on the attendance on this. Okay, so I didn't actually want to do this, so I'm going to choose these, and for 6/9 until 6/14, I'm going to do an FC and then do a generate, and it'll clear out the attendance between those dates there. So with that, I think that's the end of classes, and let's go back for some more questions.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And we do have a few additional questions that have come in. One question is on this issue of the 90 days. Does that include weekends? Does that count weekends in that? And yes, it would be 90 days from the date the individual last attended a class. That's when the clock starts. And the 90 days would include weekends and weekdays. Another question, the achievements screen that we showed earlier, we showed how to indicate an individual had obtained their high school diploma. Question centers on whether or not that is to also report high school equivalency, and no, it is not. To your point, yes, you didn't think so, and you're correct. That is only on the goals and achievements page where you're reporting your high school diplomas. That would be for those awarded in a high school program, but your high school equivalencies, as Joe pointed out earlier, would be what you're getting from the data match that we do with the high school equivalency database. A couple of comments about liking the feature, and I think this was around the time some of the stuff that Joe, you were showing in regards to the new updated attendance screens. We also have a question about what type of, for individualized enrollment type of class, can you skip a day or do you have to enter zeros? And Joe sort of highlighted the individualized entry screen. The short answer to that is no, you do not have to enter zeros between days, unlike the regular attendance screen that requires a code for every day. On the individualized entry screen, where you're tracking hours that occur outside of class, you may enter 2, and it may be a week later before you enter another value, but you don't have to have zeros in between those 2 values. And then if a person is gone for more than 90 days and has to get and gets a new period of participation, do they need a new test, or will there be an error? So the system's designed to look at assessments that have already been administered. So if a person returns after 90 days, it's going to look to see if there's a test that could qualify in that period of participation as a pre-test. And then if the student continues on and gets another assessment, another test, that test would qualify as the post-test for that second period of participation. Main point to remember is, as you know, has been historically, when you can pre-test an individual, that's, when they begin service, that's what you want to do, just as you've always done before. The system has been designed so that periods of participation will look at the testing history of the student, and when there is a test that will qualify for the second period of participation, that test will be brought into that period of participation. So one important note I do want to point out, and I think Joe touched on this briefly, is that what we have found statewide is that somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.5% to 5% of the students are all that have multiple periods of participation. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about 95% of all students have only one period of participation. So it's a small percentage of students, generally speaking, that we're finding statewide where this occurs.
One thing I wanted to add to the period of participations, Jay, is when you start a second or third period, it'll look at the previous period up to 120 days in the past from when they started their second or third period to find a test. And if they were post-tested within that range on the previous period of participation, that test can become the pre-test for the new period of participation. Hope that was clear. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It says, how will we enter high school equivalency scores that are not uploaded in the data match? There currently is no mechanism for entering at the local level high school equivalency scores. Those are all scores that are going to be coming directly from the database match. That is actually what we use for reporting for state and federal reporting purposes. We always work off the data matched high school equivalencies and not any self-reported activity. So if you anticipate that being an issue, please reach out to your regional folks and let them know. But our desire here is to try to take advantage of the data match at any of the 4 levels that we've been doing. And since that is what's being used for all the reporting, to sort of harness that data and use it effectively. Are we now able to enter scale scores for TABE test rather than raw score? I believe, Joe, if you want to speak to this, but I believe the functionality there on the TABE, if you're adding a TABE test, I think it works in the same exact way that it was working in the original system. Am I remembering that correctly?
You are. I believe the TABE requires you enter the scales or the raw scores, and then we convert them to scale. I think one of the ESL ones is the only one that you enter scale scores directly.
Yeah, I think the origins of that was that, if you enter a raw score, the behind the scenes, the system is doing the calculations and converting the scale scores. So the idea being, if folks are entering just the raw score, how many the student got right, that scale score conversion, we can rest assured is always going to be accurate. And if you start entering just scale scores, kind of opens up the window for just human error. So that's the reason for that raw score conversion within DAISI. And then how do I create class levels and the name of the classroom teachers? I'm not sure if maybe that's I'm not sure if that's a stack class or just adding a class, but Joe, you want to speak to that? I see that you brought the class details, adding the class feature up.
Yeah, I'm not clear on that one either, but we do support stack classes exactly the way they were before. I will note, we did not import the class stacks from DAISI V1 into V2, so you will have to restack them yourselves. Let us know if that's a ginormous pain. When we wrote that code many years ago, it didn't matter for reporting purposes. It's strictly a convenience for people to be able to have one screen to do all the data entry for attendance. So please restack them if you want, and we're sorry we didn't bring that over. But here's where we add classes, or actually, here's where we add classes, and down here's where we would add instructors. Not sure if we answered that question very well, if that's what you meant by that.
Okay. Couple of other questions. It says, will there be a place to note whether the test was remote or in person in the coming year? So, I mentioned earlier, part of the reason for the aggressive timeline on moving over to 2.0 is we are also, to help address the issues that have come up due to COVID, we're working on some ways to kind of handle the issue of testing and how individuals have had experiences, or programs have had experiences where they could not pre or post test an individual. So we're working on that behind the scenes as we speak. In terms of the whether the test was remote or in person, I think at this point what we'd still be looking at is if a test was administered, what was the score for that test? I'd have to go back and look at our notes on that. I don't want to misspeak here, but we are trying to make sure that we accommodate and address the issues that COVID has presented that are either related to tests that couldn't be administered or the issue of having to administer them either remotely or the more traditional method. And then another question, entering the raw scores for CASAS. So as I mentioned before, for ABE, ASE, we are working on getting the CASAS information in. I don't have the CASAS tables in front of me right now to speak to whether or not we're entering raw scores or scale. So, but our basic idea is we would have that as another option to enter assessments. I just off the top of my head right now can't remember if we're doing raw or scale on that CASAS entry screen. But
I think it's
Go
going
ahead, Joe.
I think it's going to be scale score, because I was looking at the conversions the other day from scale to NRS levels, and it didn't even mention raw scores.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thanks, Joe.
Don't quote me 100%, but that's what I recall at this moment.
All right. You have a better memory than I do, sir. Thank you. All right. So I don't see at this point any other questions. We do have a few moments left. I do want to touch on one feature that has come up. Well, actually, we do have one other question that's popped up here. How would we get a list of student phone numbers? Current DAISI has an option for a phone email, but I don't see that available in what we have seen. So back on the students list search page on that Excel option, I know we've included some basic information in there. I don't know if we included phone number in that.
We could add it easily. I'm going to reshare here to show you what we did download.
Okay.
I can tell you no, though.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And I'm going to share the Excel file. So this is what the output would look like of the downloaded list. We don't have phone number in there, but that could be something that would be very easy to add if that would help you out.
Okay. Make a note, since that's an easy addition and something that's needed, we could just add that to the Excel output. So yeah. Thanks for the suggestion there. Just looking here at the questions that have come in, says when you opened a new test, it didn't say it was generated, but below entries did. Okay, so a couple of things coming in here, but one other item I did want to touch on while we're doing the live demonstration is, as with the original DAISI system, the data that is entered in DAISI 2.0 in terms of, and I want to distinguish here, like if you enter information, those records are visibly in real time, you can see those, right? But in terms of the types of things that are doing calculations, as with the original system, if you enter, maybe on a Tuesday, you enter a large number of assessments, just like with the original DAISI, all of the calculations are performed overnight. So that in the next day, all of those, the results of the test that you've entered would be available for all of your reporting. So there's something that Joe right now, if you want to speak about policy jobs and a feature that we've added so that if you did have a situation where you immediately needed to know what those calculations look like and you couldn't wait till the next morning, we've added a feature to help with that. Joe, you want to speak about policy jobs?
Yeah, a policy job is a job that we're run nightly, and it's where we calculate based off what you've entered throughout the day. So if you've added new tests and new things like that, we generate and decide what are pre-tests and what are post-tests. You know what they are, but our system judges them kind of officially, and it determines what are pre-tests and post-tests for each test type, and also what is your official NRS pair for the fiscal year. So we do these calculations every night. Another part of what policy jobs does is it actually loads the data into our data warehouse, where when you go to Pintao and run the reports, that data is generated by the policy jobs. So we knew that people wouldn't be extremely excited that a good chunk of DAISI now is not instantaneous for calculating those NRS pairs and that stuff. So we've created this policy jobs function for you. And what you can do is you choose your fiscal year and then choose your program, and it'll only have your program in it. I can choose Kate test program. And then I hit start job, and what it does is it does all of those calculations immediately. For the largest programs in the state, it takes about an hour, and for most everybody else, it takes about between 15 and 20 minutes. So you wait your 15 or 20 minutes, you'll be able to go over to Pentaho, run your latest NRS report, or you can go back into the testing page and it'll show you the new test pairs. So you can do this once per day only, but you can do it every day if you wish. So if you do a whole bunch of data entry and you just have to get the answer out to your president of your college or whatever, whoever is requesting it, you can start this job and 15 minutes later you can have answers. So we're hoping this will alleviate the pain of it not being absolutely real time. So that's,
okay.
I don't know if anybody has any questions on policy jobs or not, but they're located under the home menu. So you hit the home button and it'll be policy jobs right here and you'll be able to run it. We'll probably make it a little bit easier, but it works now. And if you need it, you're welcome to use it.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So we are running out of time. Just a couple of things I want to sort of summarize here. Be sure to access the Adult Education Provider List DAISI 2.0 rollout to find the week that your program will move into DAISI. And do remember that as of the preceding Friday at 4 o'clock, that's when you would stop entering data in the original system. And that Monday, you would just come into 2.0 and continue entering your data just as you would have done in the original system. If you find that your program is missing from the rollout list, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, if you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your regional folks. And we know this is an aggressive timeline, and we want to do what we can to try to minimize the pains of the transition. So don't hesitate to report any issues that you encounter, and appreciate you guys joining us today. And Kirsten, I will go ahead and transfer things back to you. And just a quick, one other quick thing. There will be a link sent out later to a video of today's presentation, so you could have that as a reference if other individuals at your institution should need to see it. Kirsten, back to you.
All right, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, like Jay just said, we will send out the video recording to ICCB so they can send it out to all of you. And I'm sure they will send out the slides as well as the handout again too, but you can access those really quickly under handouts if you need to. But with that, everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.
Yep, thanks a lot.